Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Make Data Usable, the first step towards data analytics mastery. Today's presenter is Trish Connor-Cato. For your convenience, the slide deck for today's presentation will be available on the CPS HR Consulting website. Please visit us at cpshr.us to download. The session is also being recorded, and we will post a link to the recording on the same page of our website as soon as it is available. If you have any questions for Trish, please enter them in the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will address them at the end of the presentation as time allows. And now, let's get started.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for your time. I'm Trish Connor-Cato. I am going to show you what this is all about. So this is called the Data Analytics Track, and the track consists of 3 two-day courses. Part 1 is Data Wrangling and Visual Appeal in Excel. Part 2, Data Modeling and Analyzing Data in Excel. And Part 3 is Data Visualization using Power BI. And I have the dates up there. To demo this today, some of these things, what I'm going to do is start with what is raw data. So let me just switch over to Excel real quick. Get my raw data file open. So oftentimes when you bring in data to Excel from an external source, it may come in kind of raw. And what does that mean? It means it's really not usable. You might have to do some cleanup known as scrubbing of your data. So some of the things that's wrong with the data set in front of you, and I can zoom in so you can see a little bit better, is that you have, for example, you have inconsistent date formats in this column. In this column, it's supposed to be a numeric column, but it's not recognizing some of the numbers as text. That's something that would need to be fixed. If you're planning on doing any calculations, you would have problems doing that. There should be some kind of consistency in your data. You would also need to make sure there are no blank columns and rows. There's a whole host of things that you will learn to do to clean up your data during this course, this data track, the first part of this data track. If you look in column G, the product name column, there's some other things going on. There are extra spaces between some of the words. That all needs to be scrubbed. Once you scrub your data, it is usable for a host of applications in Excel. For example, pivot tables, things of that nature, doing all kinds of calculations. But a lot of times people run into trouble. They're trying to do something and it's not working, and you get frustrated and you think it's you, and it's actually that the data is still raw. You can also see some extra spaces over here in column N. So during the data track, part 1 of the data track, on the first day, you'll be working with raw data, and you will go through all of the steps necessary to scrub it and make it usable. Once the data is scrubbed, you'll be able to see the difference. This is what the scrub data looks like. So you have consistent dates. You have all of the quantities being recognized as being values and not text. All of the extra spaces in columns G and M have been cleaned up. We actually got rid of another column during the cleanup. There was a blank column in there, and you want to get rid of that. So you'll learn how to get from the first thing I showed you to this in scrubbing your data. Like I said, that would be part 1 of the data track. Once your data is scrubbed, there are a host of things that you can do with it. I mentioned pivot tables and everything. But the other thing, once you have pivot tables and pivot charts and things of that nature built, which you'll learn how to do during the data track, you can ultimately end up with something called an Excel dashboard. Now, typically when I do a dashboard, this is just an annual overview dashboard, but when I do a dashboard, typically the only sheet tab that is visible in the file is the dashboard. These other sheets are all the different data sets that make up the data that's on the dashboard. So this is a really cool thing to be able to do in Excel, the ability to use a dashboard. And so the way this one works, it's pretty cool. It's pretty automated. I have all the different years here, a span of years here. And when I click on 2011, well, I'm not even clicking on it. It's a rollover dashboard. So I'm just hovering over it. As I go to 2012, you'll notice the charts, the data sets, everything is updating just by me rolling over different years. The other thing that's built into this dashboard is the ability to be able to filter it. Right now, we're looking at all regions. I can go to the drop down and I can just choose the South. And then it will update. I have a little bit of lag on my system, but then it will update. And as I roll over, it's just showing the information for the South. And I scroll down, you can see I have other stuff here. So clean data can lead to being able to create pivot tables, charts, these things called slicers, which are used for visual filtering. You can have timelines with your pivot tables. All of those pivot table objects can be used to make a dashboard. So instead of you having to go in an Excel file that has multiple pivot tables and charts on different sheet tabs, and you're going back and forth all the time to look at your data, you can use your existing stuff to create a dashboard, which is like one-stop shopping. I'm all about efficiency, and to me, the dashboards are very much an efficiency tool. So dashboards are also covered in part 1 of the data track. You'll learn how to do really cool Excel dashboards a little bit. The next thing that I'm going to show you here is how to, oh, and before I move on, I'm sorry. You'll also learn about Power Pivot in Excel in this data track. So Excel can hold a lot of data. Each worksheet in Excel has over 1 million rows and over 64,000 columns. And so when you're creating pivot tables, if you have a massive amount of data as your source data, and you have pretty complicated calculations inside of your source data, at some point you may have performance issues with your pivot tables. They won't update automatically. There might be a little bit of a lag every time you pivot and it doesn't immediately happen. You may have to wait. So Power Pivot is an Excel add-on, which means it comes with Excel. It just needs to be enabled. And it can handle much more data than the Excel application itself. So you'll learn how to create a data model out of your Excel data. It also allows you to create relationships between your data, and then you make your pivot tables and charts based off of your data model. So that's another thing you'll learn in this course. Now, all of this leads up to being able to do reports in Power BI. Power BI desktop application is free, and it is a huge visualization tool. You can bring in data. I think they're up to over 80 data sources right now. Let me just take a look in here. So they're up to a lot of different data sources. So anything from a database to an Excel file, text file, all kinds of data sources. So here's an extensive list of all the data sources that you can bring the data into Power BI from. Some of them are being tested, so they'll say beta. They're constantly adding to this list. And please, nobody asked me what Zucchetti HR Infinity is. I've never heard of it. So you can bring your data into Power BI, and in Power BI Desktop, they're called reports. These are visualizations of the data. So I'm going to just show you a couple of the reports that I have in here. Just a basic column chart report. I have a line chart report in here, bar chart. At any point, I can go and actually look at the data. So when I switch to this view, this is the data that I imported. These are the tables that were imported. So if I look at the orders table, I can see all the different fields that are in that table. And I can do this, and I actually see the data that's in those fields. So that's data view. If there are relationships between the tables, I can see them in this view. So for example, if I want a report that shows the managers and the returned orders, those are two separate tables. I have to relate them to each other in some way, and it's typically on a common field. So returned orders table has an order ID field. Managers table doesn't, but we're using a bypass table to get to that. So we're able to link the tables to each other. If you bring data in from a database and there's already relationships between the tables, Power BI will detect those relationships so you don't have to create them again. Or if you're just bringing data from Excel and you haven't created relationships, you can create the relationships in here. I'm going to go back to our report view and show you a couple of other reports. So this is a drill down or drill up report, meaning right now I'm looking at sales by region and product name, and I can drill down to the city or the state or whatever other underlying data is there. So it's another report. So these reports end up becoming dashboards. Now, I showed you an example of an Excel dashboard. But Power BI Service, which is the cloud component, actually has dashboards that are gaining in popularity and use. Power BI has been ranking as the #1 visualization tool for the past several years. So I can take all of these reports and put them on sheet tabs, very similar to Excel. So I copied some reports from other sheets, put them on 3 tabs here, dashboard, dashboard 1, and dashboard 2. And what does this ultimately end up being used for? Okay, let me switch my screen and I will show you. So the Power BI service is not free, but it's the cloud component of Power BI. So let me go here and I can go to sample stories. So these are the dashboards that I showed you in the desktop, right? The dashboard pages. And now I will show, and I added another one that was there, mapping page. But these are the report pages that I just showed you in the desktop. So to show you the dashboard that you can create from this, just do one. I'm going to click on this. I'll click on the original dashboard. And I'm going to go here to the More Options button, and I'm going to pin to a dashboard. And I'll create a new dashboard. going to go to the dashboard. So this is the dashboard. Power BI can do some cool things for you, things you may not have thought about when analyzing your data. So they have something here called Q&A. And when I click in, ask a question about your data, it brings up these tiles that may be things I haven't thought about. Top order states by average sales per customer segment is one. So I'll click on that one, and it brings me a map visualization. And I didn't have to do anything but click on that one. So it brings me a map visualization with that information, order states by average sales per customer segment, and I can pin that visual to my dashboard. So that's not a visual I have to create on my own in the service. Another cool thing I want to show you, I'm going to just go back to my workspace in here. And I'm going to do the more options button for my data set. This is the data set, the underlying data for that's being used to create the reports in the desktop and the board here. And they have this thing called Quick Insights, really cool. So I'm going to just click on it. Tells me it's searching for insights, and it'll let me know when they're ready. So this is a very efficient analysis tool. Just like the Q&A may give you things that you hadn't thought about your data, Quick Insights does a similar thing, except Quick Insights creates all of these visualizations, and you can pick and choose what you want. So the profit by ship mode, and then it gives you little information. Regular air accounts for the majority of profit. So it's analyzing your entire data set just that quickly and coming up with these visualizations, some of which won't be useful for you. But if there's something that is useful for you, you can keep it and add it to your dashboard. So I'm going to just pick this one, the count of returns, and regular air counts for the majority of returns. It has the pin visual right there, and I'm going to just put that on the dashboard as well. So now when I go to my dashboard, it has my dashboard page, it has the Q&A, and it has the quick insight visualizations. What can I do with a dashboard? Well, I can share it. So anyone that has access to it can get to it. Depending on how you share it, they may or may not have access to the underlying data set. If I have a bunch of people that are utilizing the same dashboard, they can get updates via email when something has changed, and then they can come in and look on their own. There's a whole host of things that are used for these dashboards. Popularly, they're shared. Somebody is the dashboard owner, but there's a lot of cases where multiple people are working on the same dashboard. So the beauty of this is that if your data set, if your Excel file or your database, if it's on SharePoint or OneDrive, as people are working in that data, in the original data set, your dashboards will refresh automatically once every hour. And if you needed to refresh sooner, you could. So as your data is being changed in the original data source, all of your visualizations, both here in the cloud and in Power BI desktop, will automatically be updating constantly. You can even, with your dashboard, you can even set up like a conversation about your dashboard. I clicked on comments, and comments are now conversations. So we can be collaborating on this and talking to each other at the same time. they recently added the ability to chat in Teams about a dashboard. So Power BI is a Microsoft product. It was cobbled together from 3 different Excel add-ins, and it never really kind of came together, I would say, until about a decade ago. Early versions of this were just unusable. They finally got it right, and now they're leading the market in it. They are really good about listening to users' feedback. They have a host of integrated trainings that are available to everybody. I mean, they have documentation. I'm a member of the Power BI community, which is a great resource. So if you are trying to figure out something and you can't, somebody else has probably tried it before and posted it in the community. So just really well done. In terms of their built-in documentation for how to use these things. So just to recap with Power BI, what I did was I started by importing an Excel file into Power BI desktop. I created these visualizations, put them on different pages, and creating a visualization, I'll just show you, is as easy as this. I'll just grab a stacked bar chart visualization. It gives me the framework. I'm going to expand my orders table, and I would like to see the order date. So I'm going to put the actual order date in. The year, actually, I'll do the year here, because it's broken down. And then I want to get the product name. You see it's starting to build my visualization. So I start put product names on there, and then I'll put the unit prices in as my value field. So it kind of looks like this based on the chart. I can do something else here. I'm going to get rid of the order date, and I'm going to put in from the date hierarchy, I'm going to just grab year. Now, I can do a bunch of things. I can give coloration, but really they have, I think it's probably, and it keeps growing, they have all kinds of visualizations that you can use here, all kinds. And in the course, you'll learn how to use them and how to modify them and how to format them. Like I can go here and give it a background color, for example, just a simple one. I'm feeling a little light blue today. So yeah, all of these things independently are very easy to learn and use. It can be overwhelming when you put it all together when it's new to you. So the 3 parts of the data track are working with raw data, and you saw the raw data and versus the scrub data. Using Power BI to organize your data and create dashboards in Excel. So a dashboard exists. There's an Excel dashboard, there's a Power BI dashboard. So this is the Excel dashboard. You'll learn all the tools you need to be able to build something like this and then move on to Power BI. And the way the data track is set up is each 2-day segment leads to a completed project. So it's not like taking the regular training classes where you're learning all these topics, some where you'll never use them, but this is project oriented. So each 2-day course results in a completed project. And then I think between the second and third part, there's a takeaway project that you will work on your own with all the support that you need and all the files that you need. So you can really get in and start to internalize the process. Okay. And I'm going to just bring up the slideshow again. to go back to this slide. Right. So part the data wrangling and visual appeal in Excel, in addition to cleaning up raw data, you'll learn how to, without actually, before we even get to the dashboard, you'll learn how to do spark lines, which are charts that occupy one cell. They have a lot of visual appeal. And you will be putting together the dashboard in part 2. So data modeling and analyzing data in Excel is where you get to learn about Power Pivot, which has more capacity than the Excel application itself. You'll learn how to organize your data in there. It's called data modeling, making the relationships between your data. That's part 2. And in part 3, we're going to use the data from part 2 to import into Power BI, create reports, which will ultimately lead us to creating the dashboards in Power BI. And I have the dates up there if you want to take note of them. Actually, scroll up on that. So at this point, that concludes my demo of the things that you will be working with in the 3 different parts of this data track. Does anyone have any questions?
Trish, there's a question in the Q&A. It says, Amber's asking if we don't have access to Power BI, do you have a recommendation for something similar?
There really isn't something similar. If you don't have Power BI, what I'm finding is you may be able to get the desktop because that's free. The service, I've taught the class multiple times, and some people don't have the service, but they can go back and say, hey, I saw this and this is really cool. But there really isn't an alternative. If you don't have Power BI, you can still do parts 1 and 2, and you can use Excel dashboards instead of Power BI dashboards. Those can be shared as well, but it's more of a manual process, like sharing the Excel file or, that kind of thing. So you would still get benefit out of it if you don't do the last part. Great question.
Thank you. That is the only question I'm seeing in Q&A or chat. In chat, I did just put the link to the Data Analytics Professional Academy on our website. If you'd like to learn more information, there's more detailed descriptions, the course dates, and the registration options at that link.
Well, thank you everybody for your time. Thank you, Angelique.
Yes, thank you, Trish, as well for this presentation. And thank you again to everybody who joined us today. Please be sure to check our website at cpshr.us for the recording of this webinar. And we hope you have a great Friday and weekend as well.